The furnace repair at the Henderson place should have been routine. Replace a busted heat exchanger, collect my $300, and head home to whatever microwaved dinner my wife Sarah had left in the fridge. But as I crawled out of that dusty basement at 11:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text that would change everything. "Dude, you need to see this, now." The message from my brother Derek included a video file that made me freeze. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. My name is Elliott Crane, and I've been fixing heating and cooling systems in Frosty Lake, Michigan for 18 years. Built my business from nothing. Started with a beat-up van and a toolbox my dad left me. Now I've got 3 trucks, 2 employees, and what I thought was a solid marriage to Sarah, my wife of 12 years. The video Derek sent showed my wife grinding against some guy at the Mirage Club downtown. Her hands were in his hair, his mouth was on her neck, and they were moving together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. The timestamp showed it was taken 2 hours ago, right when Sarah told me she was having a quiet girls' night with her sister Jennifer. I sat in my van outside the Henderson house, watching that 30-second clip over and over. Sarah wore the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, the same dress she claimed was too fancy to wear when I suggested dinner at Romano's last month. My phone rang. Derek. "Elliott, man, I'm sorry. I was at the club with some buddies from the shop and I saw her. I almost didn't recognize Sarah at first. She looked so different. More alive, I guess." "Who's the guy?" My voice sounded strange, like it was coming from underwater. "Some car salesman named Brad Stedman. Works at that Ford dealership on Route 9. Married guy with 2 kids. My buddy Tony knows him. Says he's got a reputation." I ended the call and drove home slowly, my mind racing through the past 6 months. Sarah's sudden interest in working out, her new clothes, the way she'd started locking her phone, how she'd pull away when I tried to touch her, claiming she was tired or stressed. Our house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Sarah's Honda wasn't there yet. I went inside and poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, then sat at our kitchen table and waited. She came home at 1:15 a.m., reeking of cigarettes and cheap cologne. Her lipstick was smudged, her hair was a mess, and she had that guilty look I'd seen on customers' faces when they tried to convince me their broken furnace wasn't their fault. "Hey, baby," she said, trying to sound casual. "You're up late." "How was girls' night?" Sarah kicked off her heels and avoided eye contact. "Fine. Jennifer and I went to that new wine bar on Elm Street. Pretty boring, actually." I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. "Want to try that again?" Her face went white when she saw the video paused on the screen. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then something shifted in her expression. The guilt disappeared, replaced by defiance. "So what?" she said, crossing her arms. "You want to know the truth, Elliott? Fine. I'm tired of pretending to be happy in this pathetic excuse for a marriage. You work all the time, you smell like furnace dust, and when's the last time you took me anywhere that didn't involve a hardware store? You're cheating on me, Sarah. I'm living my life. Something you might want to try instead of crawling around in basements all day." The casual cruelty in her voice hit me harder than the infidelity. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake she regretted. This was calculated, deliberate. "How long?" I asked. 3 months. And before you ask, yes, it's serious. Brad makes me feel things I'd forgotten I could feel. I stood up, my hands shaking with rage. Brad Stedman, the married car salesman with 2 kids. Sarah's eyes flashed. "At least he knows how to treat a woman. When's the last time you surprised me with anything? When's the last time you made me laugh? When's the last time you gave me a chance to?" She laughed bitterly. "Everything's always someone else's fault with you, isn't it? Poor Elliott, working so hard, trying so hard. Well, guess what? Trying isn't enough anymore." I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand she end it immediately. Instead, I picked up my phone and headed for the stairs. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "To bed. We'll talk about this tomorrow when you're sober." "There's nothing to talk about, Elliott. I'm done pretending." I lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling while Sarah showered and got ready for work like nothing had happened. She left without saying goodbye, and I heard her car door slam with unusual force. That's when I made my first decision. I wasn't going to be the pathetic husband who begged his cheating wife to come back. If Sarah wanted to play games, I'd show her what a real game looked like. I called in sick to work for the first time in 5 years and drove to Murphy's boxing gym on the south side of town. I hadn't been there since college, but Coach Marty recognized me immediately. "Elliott Crane? Jesus, kid, what brings you back to my humble establishment?" "I need to hit something, Coach. Hit it hard." Marty took one look at my face and nodded. "Glove up. We'll start with the heavy bag." 3 days later, I knew everything about Brad Stedman's life. His wife Lisa worked as a nurse at Mercy General. His kids, Tommy and Grace, went to Riverside Elementary. He drove a red Mustang convertible and lived in a McMansion in the Willows subdivision, the kind of place Sarah always said she wanted to live. I also knew he was stealing from his employer. My buddy Jake worked in the dealership's service department, and after a few beers at Murphy's Tavern, he told me about Brad's side business selling parts that were supposed to go to warranty repairs. "Guy's making an extra $1,000 a month easy," Jake said. "Management knows something's up, but they can't prove it yet." What would happen if they could prove it? Fired, prosecuted, probably banned from working at any dealership in the state. Why you asking? Just curious. I was building a file on both of them. Sarah's credit card statements showed regular charges at the Mirage Club, expensive lingerie purchases, and hotel rooms during her supposed work conferences. She'd been sloppy, probably because she thought I was too stupid or too busy to notice. The worst part wasn't the cheating itself, it was how she'd changed toward me. Every conversation became an argument. She criticized everything I did, from how I loaded the dishwasher to how I dressed for church. Her sister Jennifer, who'd always been friendly before, started giving me cold looks when she came over. "Sarah says you two are having problems," Jennifer said one evening, while Sarah was upstairs getting ready for another girls' night. "Sarah's having problems. I'm trying to save my marriage." Jennifer laughed, the same bitter sound Sarah had been making lately. "Maybe if you paid attention to what she actually needs instead of assuming she should be grateful for your bare minimum effort." "What's that supposed to mean?" "When's the last time you bought her flowers, took her on a real vacation, made her feel special?" I stared at her. When's the last time she acted like she wanted those things from me? She shouldn't have to ask, Elliott. A real man would just know. That night, I followed Sarah to the Mirage Club and watched through the window as she met Brad at the bar. They didn't even try to hide it. Kissing, touching, laughing at private jokes. Other people were watching too, whispering behind their hands. My humiliation was becoming public entertainment. I went home and called Derek. "I need you to do something for me," I said, "and you're not going to like it." "What kind of something?" "I need you to take some pictures, and maybe record some conversations." Derek was quiet for a long moment. "Elliott, man, maybe you should just file for divorce and move on. This kind of thing, it never ends well." "It's already not ending well. The question is whether I go down like a victim or like a man who fought back." "What do you want me to do?" Over the next week, Derek became my eyes and ears at the Mirage Club. He documented everything: Sarah and Brad's public displays of affection, their loud arguments about when Brad was going to leave his wife, Sarah's complaints about her pathetic husband to anyone who would listen. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. I was working late at the shop, trying to finish a commercial installation when Derek called. "You need to get down here right now," he said. "Sarah's drunk off her ass, and she's telling everyone about your business. Personal stuff, Elliott. Really personal stuff." I drove to the club faster than I should have. Derek met me in the parking lot with his phone out. She's been going for 20 minutes, he said, showing me a video he'd recorded through the window. Listen to this. On the tiny screen, I watched my wife of 12 years tell a group of strangers about our financial problems, our arguments, and intimate details of our private life. She was laughing as she described how I'd tried to spice things up in the bedroom last year, making me sound pathetic and desperate. Elliott's the kind of guy who thinks changing the oil in my car counts as romance, she said to howls of laughter. He proposed to me at a Denny's, for Christ's sake. I should have known then that I was settling. Brad was encouraging her, buying her drinks and egging her on. He made jokes about blue-collar guys who didn't understand what women really wanted. The whole crowd was eating it up. I felt something break inside my chest. Not my heart, that had been fading slowly for months. This was different. This was my dignity, my self-respect, everything I'd built over 18 years of honest work and faithful marriage. Get more, I told Derek. Get everything. Elliott, get everything. I drove home and sat in my kitchen, making lists. Sarah had declared war on me publicly, and wars required strategy. I opened my laptop and started researching divorce attorneys, private investigators, and Michigan's adultery laws. By morning, I had a plan. The first casualty of Sarah's public humiliation campaign was our friend group. Tom and Michelle Rodriguez had been our closest friends for 8 years, double dates, barbecues, New Year's Eve parties. But when I called Tom to see if he wanted to grab a beer and talk things through, his response was ice cold. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Elliott. Why not? We've been friends since... Look, Sarah's been talking to Michelle. She told us what's really been going on in your marriage. How you've been controlling and jealous, checking up on her, making her feel trapped. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. Controlling? Tom, she's been cheating on me for 3 months. That's not what she says. She says you've been accusing her of things, following her around, going through her phone. Michelle thinks maybe you should get some help, man. Like professional help. Are you serious right now? Sarah's scared of you, Elliott. She says you've been acting erratic, talking about getting revenge. That's not healthy. I hung up and immediately called Michelle directly. Her voicemail picked up after 1 ring. She declined the call. An hour later, I got a text from her. Elliott, I think it's best if you and Sarah work through your issues privately. Tom and I don't want to be in the middle of this anymore. Sarah had gotten to them first. She'd spun a story that made me the villain and her the victim, and they'd bought it completely. I wondered what version of events she'd told them, probably something about a controlling husband who couldn't handle his wife's independence. I tried calling our other friends with similar results. Dave and Karen Chen were too busy to meet up. Mike and Jennifer Walsh thought I should respect Sarah's space while she figured things out. One by one, people I'd known for years were shutting me out based on whatever lies Sarah had fed them. The isolation was calculated and cruel. Sarah knew exactly how to play the victim while destroying my support system. She was better at this game than I'd given her credit for. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. I drove to the dealership where Brad worked and spent an hour watching him through the service department window. He was everything I wasn't. Tall, perfectly groomed, expensive clothes, easy smile. The kind of guy who'd never had furnace grease under his fingernails or worried about making payroll. Jake found me in the parking lot during his lunch break. You look like hell, man, he said. Everything okay? Remember what you told me about Brad Stedman? Jake's expression grew cautious. What about it? I need details. Dates, amounts, how he's doing it. Elliott, I can't. My wife's been screwing him for 3 months, Jake. He's been spending money on her that he stole from your boss. You want to help me or not? Jake looked around nervously, then pulled out his phone. There's a storage unit behind the shop where he keeps parts that are supposed to go back to Ford for warranty credits. He's been selling them online instead and pocketing the cash. How much are we talking about? Maybe 15 grand over the past year. It's federal fraud if they can prove it. What would it take to prove it? Jake stared at me for a long moment. You're playing with fire, Elliott. I'm already burned. The question is whether I burn alone. That evening, Sarah came home late again, but this time she wasn't trying to hide anything. She walked into our bedroom where I was reading and started packing a suitcase. I'm staying at Jennifer's for a while, she announced. I need space to think. Space to screw Brad without sneaking around, you mean? She spun around, her eyes blazing. You know what? Yes, exactly. I'm tired of pretending this marriage means anything to me. Brad makes me happy. He makes me feel alive. When's the last time you did that? When's the last time you let me try? Everything's always my fault, isn't it? Poor Elliott, the victim. Well, here's a news flash. I don't owe you anything. I don't owe you fidelity. I don't owe you respect. And I sure as hell don't owe you an apology for finding someone who actually appreciates me. She threw clothes into the suitcase with violent motions, her face twisted with contempt. You want to know the truth? She continued. I've been planning this for months. Brad's going to leave Lisa after the holidays, and we're going to start fresh somewhere that doesn't smell like motor oil and disappointment. What about our business? Our house? 12 years of marriage? Sarah laughed. What about them? You think I want to spend the rest of my life married to a furnace repairman in this hopeless town? Brad's got ambition. He's going places. He's a car salesman who steals from his employer. He's a man who knows what he wants and takes it. Unlike some people. She zipped up the suitcase and headed for the door, then turned back with a cruel smile. Oh, and Elliott? Don't bother calling our friends for sympathy. I've already told them how you've been acting. They're on my side now. After she left, I sat in our empty bedroom and felt something fundamental shift inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was being consumed by something colder and more focused. Sarah wanted to play dirty? Fine. But she'd forgotten something important about me. I'd built my business by solving problems that other people couldn't handle. And right now, she was just another problem that needed fixing. I opened my laptop and started making phone calls. The showdown with my former friends happened at Murphy's Tavern on a Friday night. I'd been going there alone for 2 weeks, nursing beers and planning my next moves, when Tom and Michelle Rodriguez walked in with Dave and Karen Chen. They saw me immediately but pretended they hadn't. I finished my drink, walked over to their table, and sat down uninvited. We need to talk, I said. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Elliott, I told you on the phone. You told me a lot of things based on lies my wife fed you. Now I'm going to tell you the truth. Michelle looked nervous. We don't want to get involved in your marriage problems. You're already involved. Sarah made sure of that when she decided to destroy my reputation along with my marriage. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. This is what your friend Sarah has been doing while you've been taking her side. The video Derek had recorded at the Mirage Club started playing. Sarah's voice filled the air as she mocked me to a crowd of strangers, sharing intimate details of our marriage and making jokes about my proposal at Denny's. Their faces changed as they watched. The easy certainty they'd had about who was right and who was wrong began to crumble. Turn it off, Karen whispered. Why? This is the woman you've been defending, the victim you felt so sorry for. I swiped to the next video, Sarah and Brad groping each other at the bar while she complained about her pathetic husband to anyone who would listen. Jesus Christ, Elliott, Dave muttered. There's more, I said, scrolling through the evidence Derek had collected. 3 months of this. 3 months of her publicly humiliating me while you all decided I was the problem. Tom looked sick. We didn't know. You didn't want to know. It was easier to believe I was some controlling monster than to admit your friend was a cheating liar. Michelle was crying now. Sarah told us you were following her, accusing her of things. I was following her because she was cheating on me. I was accusing her of things because she was doing them. I leaned forward. But here's what really gets me. None of you bothered to ask for my side of the story. 12 years of friendship, and you wrote me off based on the word of a woman who was screwing a married man in public. The silence stretched out painfully. Finally, Tom spoke up. "What do you want from us, Elliott?" "Nothing. I want absolutely nothing from any of you. I just wanted you to know who you really chose to support." I stood up to leave, but Karen grabbed my arm. "We're sorry," she said. You should have been my friends. Instead, you became part of her plan to isolate me and make me look crazy. Congratulations, it worked." I walked out of Murphy's Tavern and never went back. The confrontation hadn't made me feel better, but it had accomplished something important. It had shown me exactly who I could trust. The answer was nobody except Derek, and even he was starting to worry about how far I was willing to go. "You're getting obsessed with this," he told me the next morning. "Maybe it's time to just file for divorce and move on." "She's not getting away with it, Derek. She humiliated me in front of the whole town, turned our friends against me, and now she's planning to run off with her boyfriend like some romantic heroine. That's not how this story ends." "What are you planning to do?" I showed him the folder I'd been building: financial records, photographs, witness statements, and a detailed timeline of Sarah's affair. But the real prize was the information Jake had given me about Brad's theft from the dealership. "I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve," I said. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Brad had been stealing from his employer for over a year, but management couldn't prove it because they didn't know where he was stashing the stolen parts. I knew. More importantly, I knew someone who could help me document it. My cousin Rick worked for the county sheriff's department, and he owed me a favor from when I'd fixed his furnace for free during his divorce. One anonymous tip about suspicious activity at a storage unit, and Rick would have to investigate. If he happened to find evidence of felony theft, well, that was just good police work. But Brad was only half the equation. Sarah had been stealing too, not parts, but money. She'd been using our joint credit cards to finance her affair, charging hotel rooms and expensive dinners that she'd claimed were work expenses. That was fraud, technically, but more importantly, it was ammunition for the divorce proceedings. I spent the weekend organizing everything into a comprehensive dossier: photos, videos, financial records, witness statements, enough evidence to destroy both of them in court and in the court of public opinion. On Monday morning, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to Rick, reporting suspicious activity at Brad's storage unit. The second was to the Ford dealership's corporate fraud hotline, providing detailed information about Brad's side business. The third was to the best divorce attorney in town, requesting an emergency consultation. By Tuesday afternoon, Brad Stedman was in handcuffs, and Sarah was frantically calling me from Jennifer's house. "What did you do?" she screamed into the phone. "I solved a problem," I said calmly, "just like I do every day. Brad's been arrested. They're saying he stole thousands of dollars. $15,437 to be exact, plus interest and penalties." There was a long silence. Then, "You bastard. You vindictive, pathetic bastard." "I'm just getting started, Sarah. You wanted to play games with my life? Let's see how you like it when someone who's actually good at games plays back." I hung up and smiled for the first time in weeks. The beauty of destroying someone's life legally is that they can't complain about it without admitting they deserved it. Sarah learned this lesson the hard way over the next month as everything she'd built came crashing down around her. Brad's arrest made the front page of the Frosty Lake Gazette. Local car salesman charged with felony theft was embarrassing enough, but the details were even worse. The article mentioned that Brad had been using the stolen money to finance an extramarital affair, and while they didn't name Sarah directly, everyone in town knew who Brad Stedman's girlfriend was. Sarah's employer, Dr. Morrison, called her into his office the day after the article ran. She'd been telling people she was taking time off to deal with marriage problems, but the truth was that Morrison had suspended her pending an investigation into whether she'd known about Brad's criminal activities. "You can't fire me for my personal life," she told him, according to Jennifer, who'd been acting as Sarah's messenger since I'd stopped taking her calls. "I can fire you for bringing negative publicity to my practice," Morrison had replied. "Half my patients are asking me about my receptionist's affair with a criminal. That's not the kind of reputation I want for my business." Sarah was officially terminated on a Wednesday. By Friday, she was behind on the rent for the apartment she'd moved into after leaving Jennifer's place. Apparently, she'd been counting on Brad's stolen money to finance their new life together, but that money was now evidence in a federal fraud case. I could have felt sorry for her. Should have, maybe. But every time I started to soften, I remembered her voice at the Mirage Club, mocking our entire marriage for the entertainment of strangers. The divorce proceedings were a massacre. My attorney, Helen Vasquez, was a shark in a business suit who specialized in cases involving adultery and financial misconduct. "Your wife made several critical errors," she explained during our first meeting. "First, she used joint credit cards to finance her affair, which constitutes marital misconduct. Second, she publicly humiliated you, which demonstrates a pattern of cruel and inhuman treatment. Third, she's been unemployed since her termination, which means she has no income to claim spousal support." "What does that mean for me?" "It means you're going to keep everything. The house, the business, the vehicles, the retirement accounts, all of it. She'll be lucky to walk away with her personal belongings." Sarah hired a lawyer too, but he was a public defender type who specialized in drunk driving cases. He was completely outmatched by Helen's preparation and documentation. The hearing was scheduled for December 15th, but Sarah tried to settle out of court in early December. She was desperate, living in a studio apartment, working part-time at a grocery store, and facing the reality that her romantic adventure had turned into a financial disaster. She called me directly, something she hadn't done since Brad's arrest. "Elliott, please," she said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "We don't have to do this in court. We can work something out privately." "Like what?" "I'll give up any claim to the business if you help me with a security deposit on a decent apartment. I just need a fresh start." I let the silence stretch out before responding. "You had a fresh start, Sarah. You had 12 years of marriage to a man who loved you, a comfortable home, and financial security. You threw it all away for a car salesman who turned out to be a thief. I made mistakes. You made choices. Now you get to live with the consequences." "I'm sorry, Elliott. I'm truly, genuinely sorry. I know I hurt you, and I know I handled things badly, but please don't destroy me over it." For a moment, I almost wavered. She sounded broken, defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd walked out of our bedroom with a suitcase full of dreams. Then I remembered Tom and Michelle and Dave and Karen, sitting in Murphy's Tavern, looking at me like I was some kind of dangerous stalker because of the lies she'd told them. "You destroyed yourself, Sarah. I just documented it." The court hearing was everything Helen had promised. Sarah's lawyer was unprepared and overwhelmed, while Helen systematically presented evidence of adultery, financial misconduct, and cruel treatment. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, was clearly disgusted by Sarah's behavior. "Mrs. Crane," she said during her final ruling, "you have conducted yourself in a manner that shows complete disregard for the sanctity of marriage and the basic principles of honesty and fidelity. Your actions have caused significant emotional and financial harm to your husband, and you have demonstrated no genuine remorse for your behavior." Sarah got nothing. No spousal support, no share of the business, no claim to the house or vehicles. She was ordered to pay half the court costs and attorney fees, which she couldn't afford. I walked out of that courthouse a free man, legally and financially intact. Sarah walked out with a judgment against her that would follow her for years, but I still wasn't done. The last piece of my revenge required patience and perfect timing. I waited until Valentine's Day, exactly 1 year after Sarah had complained that I never did anything romantic, to deliver the final blow. Brad Stedman had been sentenced to 18 months in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution to the Ford dealership. His wife, Lisa, had divorced him and moved back to Ohio with their kids. He'd lost his house, his car, and his reputation, all for a woman who'd abandoned him the moment things got difficult. Sarah was working at Walmart and living in a trailer park on the outskirts of town. She'd tried to leave Frosty Lake after the divorce, but her financial situation made that impossible. She was trapped in the same small town where everyone knew her story. I could have left it there. She was already paying for her choices in ways that would last for years. But there was one more humiliation I wanted to inflict, one final reminder of what she'd thrown away. I hired a private investigator to document her current living situation, the rundown trailer, the hopeless job, the complete absence of the glamorous life she'd thought she was trading up to. Then I had the photos compiled into a professional presentation. On Valentine's Day, I sent copies to everyone who'd taken her side during our marriage troubles: Tom and Michelle Rodriguez, Dave and Karen Chen, Mike and Jennifer Walsh, her sister Jennifer, even Dr. Morrison, her former employer. The package included a note. "This is what Sarah Crane chose over 12 years of marriage to a faithful husband. I thought you should see how her new life turned out." It was cruel, unnecessary, probably the most vindictive thing I'd ever done in my life. It was also deeply satisfying. The responses came quickly. Tom called to apologize again, his voice full of shame and regret. Michelle sent a long email explaining how sorry she was for believing Sarah's lies. Dave and Karen showed up at my house with a bottle of expensive whiskey and an invitation to their anniversary party. Even Jennifer, Sarah's sister, reached out to say she'd been wrong about me and wrong about Sarah's version of events. But the best response came from an unexpected source: Lisa Stedman, Brad's ex-wife. She called me on a Tuesday evening in March, almost a year after everything had started. "Mr. Crane, this is Lisa Stedman. I think we should talk." We met at a coffee shop in the next town over, away from Frosty Lake's gossip network. Lisa was an attractive woman in her 40s, with tired eyes and the kind of quiet strength that comes from surviving a major betrayal. "I wanted to thank you," she said after we'd ordered our drinks. "For what?" "For exposing what Brad was doing. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't prove it. When he got arrested, it all finally made sense." We talked for 2 hours. She told me about the lies Brad had told her, the money that had gone missing from their joint accounts, the nights he'd claimed to be working late while he was actually with Sarah. "The worst part wasn't the cheating," she said. "It was how stupid he made me feel, like I was crazy for being suspicious, paranoid for asking questions." "I know exactly what you mean. Your wife, ex-wife, she called me after Brad got sentenced. She wanted to apologize, she said. But really, she just wanted to know if I blamed her for what happened." "What did you tell her?" Lisa smiled grimly. "I told her that she was welcome to him, that she'd gotten exactly what she deserved. A lying, stealing, cheating loser who was now in federal prison. And I thanked her for taking him off my hands." We started dating in April, not because we were both wounded and looking for comfort, but because we genuinely liked each other. Lisa was smart, funny, and honest in ways that Sarah had never been. She appreciated simple gestures like flowers and home-cooked meals because she'd been married to a man who thought grand gestures could make up for fundamental dishonesty. By summer, she and her kids had moved to Frosty Lake. Tommy and Grace called me Mr. Elliott and seemed to enjoy having a stable male figure in their lives again. Lisa started helping with the books at my HVAC business, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something instead of just maintaining it. Sarah heard about our relationship through the town gossip network. She tried to confront me one day outside the grocery store, looking haggard and desperate. "Really, Elliott? Brad's ex-wife? That's not suspicious at all." "What's suspicious about two people who were betrayed by the same liars finding happiness together? You planned this whole thing, didn't you? The arrest, the divorce, everything. You orchestrated all of it." I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who'd shared my bed for 12 years, who'd promised to love and honor me, who'd thrown it all away for a fantasy that had turned into a nightmare. "Sarah," I said quietly, "I didn't have to plan anything. I just had to document what you were already doing and let the consequences play out naturally. You destroyed your own life. I just made sure you couldn't take mine down with it." She started crying then, right there in the parking lot. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration and self-pity. "I loved him," she said. "I really loved Brad." "No, you didn't. You loved the idea of him. You loved what you thought he represented. Escape, excitement, a different kind of life. But you never actually knew him. Just like you never actually knew me." I walked away and left her standing there in the parking lot, crying over a man who'd never deserved her love and a life she'd never really wanted. 6 months later, Lisa and I got married in a small ceremony at the courthouse. Derek was my best man, and Lisa's kids were our witnesses. We honeymooned in Mackinac Island and came home to a house that finally felt like a home again. Sarah moved away from Frosty Lake eventually, though I heard she struggled financially for years due to the judgment from our divorce and her association with Brad's criminal case. She never remarried, as far as I know. Brad served his full sentence and was released to a halfway house in Detroit. He violated parole within 6 months and went back to prison. Some people never learn. As for me, I learned that revenge is a dish best served systematically, legally, and with perfect documentation. I learned that the best way to destroy someone who's betrayed you is to simply expose the truth about who they really are and let natural consequences take their course. Most importantly, I learned that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. And by the time Sarah finally left Frosty Lake for good, I felt nothing but indifference toward her. She'd wanted excitement and passion and a grand romantic adventure. Instead, she got exactly what she'd chosen: a liar, a thief, and a man who abandoned her the moment things got difficult. Meanwhile, I got something better than revenge. I got a second chance at happiness with someone who understood the value of loyalty, honesty, and keeping your promises. In the end, the best revenge was living well.